What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards Football, Sports Talk Radio. I'll be your host and producer, Logan Landers. Join me here today to do an NFL Week 14 game preview between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Dallas Cowboys. Help me out today and break down both these teams is the very talented Brian LeBel. Brian, how you doing this afternoon, man? And let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals, the talk of the town, and what, for everyone I've heard say, is the best 4-8 team in the league. Do you agree with that statement?
I would say so. Maybe the best 4-8 team ever. I don't know, because the offense is just, my goodness. Because I mean, if you look at Joe Burrow, especially, I'm just going to start with him because he's been unreal. Jamar Chase too. I think he leads the league in touchdowns. I think he's right up there in yards. I'm not sure if he leads, but Burrow's got over 3,300 yards and 30 touchdowns, and they got 4 wins.
Yep.
And my whole thing is, if they had won 2 of them. If they could have squeaked out 2 more wins, I think he's first place in the MVP conversation right now. But they're not going to give MVP to a quarterback on a 4-8 football team. I think one of the big things that no one really talks about with Cincinnati is they were one of those teams that says, hey, we got an aging running back in Joe Mixon. Typically what you do is you let him walk. We're not going to pay him. You bring in a younger guy, which they did with Brown, who's been good, but they're near the bottom of the league in rushing. I think they're 27th in total rushing. It's been really, really bad. And I think maybe that's something they wish they could have had back, have Joe Mixon on this roster, because when they were dominating last year, he was at the fold of it. His passing game hasn't missed a beat. T. Higgins has been getting involved. You get your tight ends involved. Obviously, Jamar Chase is the big one, but it's just really baffling how bad this football team is for how good they are. With just the offensive production is crazy, but they're 4-8. So, and you play to win the game.
Yeah. That's true, and for me, like you say, you mentioned it all on offense. It's a passing league, obviously. This is the top passing team in the league in terms of yards per game. So you know what they're going to do. And Joe Burrow, credit to him, he's looked great. I know last week he struggled a little bit, had a fumble or two. But when you look at this team, though, I want to go to defense because Trey Hendrickson can't do it all.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what he's doing on defense. He's got 11.5 sacks this year. The Cincinnati Bengals as a team have 21. Yeah. So Trey Hendrickson is responsible for over half the team's sacks this year. The next person on this roster in terms of your sack leaders is a 2-way tie between Sam Hubbard and Joseph Ossai. Both of those gentlemen have 2 each. So in terms of getting to the quarterback, it's a one-man show pretty much. When you look at this team, they have 7 picks on the season. I mean, you'd like to get a little bit more. Your top player in that category is going to be Cam Taylor-Britt. But like you said, it's hard for them to just stop a traffic cone. They give up so many points per game, and it just makes it even tougher on this offense, which if you look at the body of work for Cincinnati, I just want to look through some of the games that they've had this year that have resulted in losses. So you lose 16-10 against New England, 26-25 against Kansas City, 38-33 against Washington, 41-38 against Baltimore in OT. You get beat by Philly by 20 points. That's kind of an outlier there. You lose by 1 point to Baltimore again. You lose by 7 to the Chargers. And then you lose this past week to the Pittsburgh Steelers 44-38. So the trend I'm seeing here is beside week 1, which it's the Patriots. They're not a high-scoring program either. You're giving up at least 15-plus points a game. And for the most part, it's going to be over 30. You can't have that. And like you said, Brian, whenever your team is putting up 30-plus points, you should 9 times out of 10 win those games. Unfortunately for Cincinnati, it's reversed. 9 times out of 10, they're losing those games. So it's just odd to see. I had high hopes for Cincinnati this year. I thought, like you said, I know they lost Joe Mixon, which I knew that was going to take a step back, but I didn't expect this much of a step back. In terms of just their running production or lack thereof, you could say. So Cincinnati's been disappointing this year. Look, they're 4-8. There's not a whole lot of spots out there in the AFC that they can slide in here and say, all right, we're coming in here. So if they want to do anything, it needs to start on Monday Night Football against these Dallas Cowboys, 8:15 kickoff. So let's talk about these Cowboys. Came out, what was it, Micah Parsons the other day said, oh yeah, don't stop believing us. We can do this. Jerry Jones, I'm sure he's still saying that it's a playoff team, that they don't need to fix anything. Is that the case, Brian? Do you think that this Cowboys team can get it turned around, or do you think that their season's kind of up in smoke?
Well, I mean, I was looking for whatever formula, or whatever equation that they had plugged in that said, "Hey, we're in the playoffs." I just couldn't find it because typically the third best team in the division isn't going to make the playoffs, and they're by a wide margin the third best team in the division. The Commanders have been a surprise; they've done really, really well. And the
Mhm.
Eagles might be the best team in the NFC. They're just steamrolling people right now. Saquon Barkley's unstoppable, but to the Cowboys' credit, they've done a decent job holding it together. When you lose your starting quarterback, when arguably the best pass rusher in the league, you got him and he misses time. They shut down Zach Martin today. You have no rushing attacks. CeeDee Lamb's shoulder pops in and out just about every other play. There's not really a lot you can do. I'll give him credit. You win a game on Thanksgiving against your rival, a game that you probably should have won, but you take care of business. But I just don't. It's crazy. They have a lot of similarities to Cincinnati, and they're a very good
Mhm.
passing team. Even still, Cooper Rush is still going to give you 200, 215 yards a game consistently. He's not going to turn the ball over a lot, but they can't run the ball. It's really bad. Rico Dowdle's been okay, but it's just with the talent they have on the front five, even with everything. I know they shut Martin down. They've had some injuries, but you would think you can run the ball, rely on that, take some pressure off whoever you have in at quarterback. It's just not there. And they could squeak out maybe 2 or 3 more wins, maybe hover around 7, 8, but I just playoffs. I don't think so.
Yeah, this Dallas team, they came into the season, a lot of talk. Obviously, when they signed CD and Dak Prescott to those big money deals. Unfortunately, not the greatest start. We saw that Dak's been out for a couple weeks now, and he's not going to be back. He's going to be out for the year, and we'll see how he recovers and how he will do in the 2025 campaign. But looking at this current roster, Dallas 2 game, they've won back-to-back games. You beat the Commanders, and I watched that game, Brian. That's probably the worst game of football I've seen in a long time. Special teams errors, interceptions, fumbles, penalties. I mean, just not good play. Not good play at all from that game a couple weeks ago.
Very sloppy, yeah.
Very sloppy. And then you come back, you beat the Giants last week, which, I mean, look, the Giants aren't doing a whole lot better. They're 2-10. You beat them 27-20, final score in that game. Like I said, Rico Dowdle, he's looked better. Last week ran for over 100 yards, so that put him over right at 600 exactly on the season. But their rushing game, they only got 4 touchdowns as a team on the running game. You got to get more production off of that. And I don't think they are going to get it this season, but I'm just saying in general, if you want to really have a good team, you have to have a much better running game than 4 touchdowns coming into week 14. Also, Ezekiel Elliott, I mean, that's just been look, it's time to cut ties, right? It's like that ex-girlfriend that you're talking with that you say, you know what, maybe we can give it more chance, and you go back and it doesn't work. I think that it might be time. But rest of this team, obviously, we know the receiving core. We know it's a heavy dose of CeeDee Lamb. Like you said, he has been hurt a little bit. Surprised, though, I like the tight end, Jake Ferguson. He's been banged up, though, but when he's healthy, I think he's looked really sharp. Really good tight end there. Same with Schoonmaker, their backup, right? That combo tight end duo right there. Jalen Tolbert, he's looked serviceable. I think a guy who is pretty solid all in all. I like Kevontae Turpin. Guy is just lightning quick. I feel like they could maybe do some jet sweeps or something with him just to get his speed more involved because he is electric. I know he returns the punts and kicks for this team, so he is
of all trades kind
of
guy.
He is, and those are guys that I want to give the ball more to. So if you're listening out there, coordinating staff for Dallas, might want to maybe see if you can throw that one in there. But like you said, Brian, just this defense and whatnot, it's just been tough. I mean, you look at some of the teams that they've played. I mean, a lot of the solid teams, right? The teams that are above 500, give or take, they're just scoring points in bunches for the most part. I mean, obviously, everyone talked about the week 2 loss to New Orleans where they gave up 44. You lose to Baltimore 28-25, but then they went on a rough 5-game losing streak where they just were struggling. I mean, you got beat 47-9 against Detroit, 30-24 against San Fran. You lose to Atlanta 27-21, a close one there. But then Philly comes back and beats you over the head 34-6, and another 34 points given up by the Houston Texans. Like I say, you've came back. The offense has looked better under Cooper Rush, who threw for 247 yards against Washington and 195 last week on Thanksgiving. So, I mean, there's ways that this team is finding ways to win, but I think that for this one, I think that Cincinnati will take this. I think the offense is just going to be too much for the defense for Dallas to keep up with. And, I guess you could say they're getting back on track, but it might be a little bit too late. What are your final thoughts on this Monday Night Football game here, Brian?
I think this has to be a get right game for Cincinnati. At a certain point, you say, okay, we'll figure out whatever, but you're in the meat and potatoes of the season. You got 5 games left. You have sky high expectations. I mean, this is a team that everyone, Pittsburgh, I know is the top of the division, but everyone's like, hey, it's Cincinnati and it's Baltimore. Those are the 2 teams we're looking forward to seeing. Those are the teams we expect to be there. If you want any sort of semblance of, hey, maybe we can salvage a season. If you don't make the playoffs, if you can rip off 3, 4, 5 in a row, finish 8, 9 wins and have some momentum, seeing what you got. But both teams, it's win now. I think Dallas' season is mostly over. Cincinnati, probably the same thing. I think Cincinnati's going to win the game. I wouldn't be shocked, though, if Dallas did, which is crazy to think with, Cooper Rush. But what they did against the Commanders, they look good at times, too. So I don't know. Both of these teams are just kind of an enigma. It's Jekyll and Hyde. It's the offense is spectacular. It's just as long as their defense doesn't step on the field for Cincinnati. And then with the Cowboys, we could be great. We could be terrible. We don't know. So I think Cincinnati will win the game. I think it'll be closer. I think it'll be a high-scoring game. If you have fantasy players this game, that'll probably be good. But other than that, it's just crazy to me to watch these 2 teams where they were and where they are now.
Yeah, I mean, really a fall from grace for really both these teams. I mean, when you looked at them last year, especially, oh my God, everyone's saying, all right, these 2 teams are going to be, fighting deep in the playoffs. And then you come into this year and say, all right, they might have lost some pieces, but they can still get there. And I mean, like I said, we're week 14. Both these teams have losing records. And it ain't by 1 game; it's by multiple. So we'll see which team can maybe right the ship here, get closer to 500. For me, I'll go with Cincinnati in this one. I think the offense, with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, I like that combo a lot. They've looked great. It's just the rest of the team, for the most part, has to step it up in this one. So I'll go final score for this one. I'll go Cincinnati getting the win in this one. I'll go 33-24, and my final score for this one. So Cincinnati gets the win, and like I said, we'll see what happens this Monday Night Football game. Once again, Brian LeBel, thank you so much, man, for coming on the show, talking about both these teams, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Dallas Cowboys. Once again, you guys can check out this game, 8:15 Eastern, on both ESPN as well as ABC, your Monday night kickoff game. And once again, if you enjoy the episode here, like, follow, share, and subscribe. We go live each and every single week on Facebook, YouTube, and be sure to go and download our podcast. Until next week,